At the end of Acharei Mot, the Torah discusses the Isurim of Arayas, of illicit relations. And as well, we actually, and the Torah says that if you do these sexual crimes, these sexual acts in the land of Israel, so the land will vomit you out. It's a toeva, and the land Eretz Yisrael can't tolerate such terrible averas. So the Ramban asks, like, what do you mean Eretz Yisrael can't tolerate these averas? These are in mitzvahs hatuliyas ba'aretz. We know there's special halachas limited to the land of Israel, truma, ma'isa, shmita, all the agricultural laws. So I understand, so maybe if you don't keep those lands, or shmita, so then the land will throw you out, like perhaps they say, that brought the Churban. But what does that have to do with Eretz Yisrael? Why doesn't America throw you out, or Canada? So this leads the Ramban, the famous Ramban, to point out that the purpose of all mitzvahs, really the ultimate purpose, is to fulfill them in Eretz Yisrael. Like this famous Ramban, well, how did the Avos, well, the Gemara in Yuma tells us, Abraham, and we assume all the Avos were Mekayim Kol HaTorah Kulo. So the famous Kasha of the Rishonim, how did Yaakov marry two wives then? So the Ramban's famous answer is, only in Chutz La'aretz. In Chutz La'aretz he had two wives, but when in Eretz Yisrael, the Avos kept the Torah. So there's something special about the land of Israel, which is the ultimate purpose. There's a famous Sifri that Rashi quotes about that even when it comes to Tefillin and Mezuzos, the Sifri writes, why do you have to keep Tefillin and Mezuzos in Golos, in Chutz La'aretz? So when you go back to Eretz Yisrael, when you go back to the Beis HaMikdash, you'll remember how to keep them. So that's the Ramban, and that's Rav Kook always loved this Ramban and the Sifri. Rav Soloveitchik never went for it. He thought, and the Vilna Gaon writes that these things, it's a printer's mistake. It shouldn't have been Tefillin and Mezuzos. It should have been Trumas and Maasros. But either way, it's clear that it existed because Rashi quotes the Sifri. So either way, that's what the Ramban writes, that since the main purpose of keeping all the mitzvahs ultimately is that we move back to Eretz Yisrael, so therefore the Torah says in Eretz Yisrael, if you violate these averas, you get thrown out of the land. So when do we read this parasha at the end, besides reading it this week, because it's the parasha Shavua, but what holiday do we read Acharei Mot? So that's on Yom Kippur. We actually read it in the beginning of the parasha in the morning, but at night we read about the Isur of Arayah. So the Tosas and Megillah asks, what's the kesher? What do we read the parasha of Arayas on Yom Kippur for? Like, what's the connection? So Tosas suggests some different explanations. One is we know from the Gemara in Tainis that on Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur were the days for Shidduchim, the days the Shadchanim, they used to set people up, marriage. So therefore, when it's a day of marriage, so therefore they reiterated the Isurim of Arayas, of going out, etc., being careful. That's one answer of Tosfos. Another answer is Tosfos is that God telling us not to Megala Erva, not to reveal, do any sins of Arayas. So we're telling him, God, don't Megala our Erva, don't reveal our sins, forgive us for all our sins. That's the two answers Tosfos gives. Rav Soloveitchik offered a third explanation as well. He thought that there's halacha of that, let's say, what do we do every Shabbos? Well, we read, let's say, we read Tazriel Metzorah, and then we're going to read Acharei Mot. So at Mincha we continue. So there's halacha that in Shabbos Mincha you continue what you read from the previous week. So since we read the beginning of Acharei Mot, so too, even though we skip a little bit, but so too we continue where we left off. This itself is a fundamental discussion, whether it's true in terms of why do we read Mincha on Yom Kippur for? Normally on Shabbos we read the Kriyas HaTorah, and And on Yontif Mincha, we don't read. So, how come we're reading on Yom Kippur? So when else do we read on Mincha? So besides on Shabbos, we know on Mincha B'Tainis. On a Tainis Sibor, on a communal fast day, we read the Kriyas HaTorah. We also read the Haftorah, which some say that is the whole Ikr. The Ikr is the Haftorah. They have the Musar to get the tshuva in from the Nevi'im, but we don't want to just, we can't just read the Haftorah, so we got to read out Kavod HaTorah, we got to read the Psukim. That's why there is a sheet that we don't pass in this way, that you only need one Aliyah, because the whole purpose is that we just wanted to give Kavod HaTorah, so one Aliyah is enough. We assume anyway, we read 3 Aliyahs, and we read the Haftorah. So the Shaila is, when we read Kriyas HaTorah at Mincha Yom Kippur is also a Tainis. Are we reading it b'Torah's Tainis Sibor, or are we reading it b'Torah's Kedushas Hayom? That already Rabbi Akiva Eger and other Achronim raised the question whether it's Midin Kedushas Hayom or Midin Tainis. My nafkamina. What's the practical difference whether I read Mincha Yom Kippur because it's Midin Kedushas Hayom or Midin Tainis? The number one major nafkamina is, let's say I'm not fasting. I'm a chol sheish bo sakana, someone's a chol sheish bo sakana, and you have to eat, but you're keeping everything else about Yom Kippur except you're eating. So, can he get aliyah on Mincha Yom Kippur? Apparently Yom Kippur in the morning is clearly out Kedushas Hayom. So, Pashtus then, according to Rabbi Akiva Eger, you can. And Mincha Yom Kippur, it's a shaila, seems to, by Mincha Yom Kippur, he says the shaila whether it's Kedushas Hayom or Midin Tainis. That's one major nafkamin who could get an aliyah. Another nafkamin is from the Marcheshes. He was a Talmud of the Beis Halevi, and he used to say, he learns the old way, not the new Rav Chaim, even though he writes both ways. So the Rav, when he used to go to the university in Berlin, he used to go to visit Rav Chaim. He used to go visit the Marcheshes, I think also, and others. And so he spoke to him, he heard his live from the Marcheshes. The Marcheshes, what's the nafkamin? The nafkamin is, what do we do on Shabbos and Yontif? How do we read all the brachas? We end up Mekadesh Shabbos or Mekadesh Yisrael B'Azmanim. On a regular Tainis, on a fast day, we end Magin David. So the shaila is, what do we do on Mincha Yom Kippur? Shacharis Yom Kippur, so everyone agrees, you finish off, you do the full brachas, Mekadesh Yisrael, Yom Kippurim, whatever the nusach is. But with the shaila is, what about by Mincha? Do I end Magin David, or do I do all the brachas? So the Marcheshes points out, it's a Machlokas Rishonim, which is a Machlokas, the Mechaber and the Ramah. The Mechaber writes you do all the brachas, and the Ramah writes that you only end Magin David. So it's Mashav in the Mechaber, it's Bidin Kedushas Shabbos, Kedushas Hayom, that's overlaying Mincha. And according to the Ramah, it seems to me Bidin Tainis. And the Rav always, he felt the Rav always followed the minig of the Gra in Vilna, and he used to, even though minig Ashkenaz is not to, he used to do all the brachas. So that'd be another nafkamina, is how many brachas, and I think the Rav added another nafkamina is what nusach, not what nusach, but what niggin do you use? In other words, there's a regular niggin you use all year round, and then there's a special Yom Naram niggin. Baruch Hu es Hashem HaMivorach. A different tune. To the refer for Mincha Yom Kippur, do you go with the regular tune, or do you go with the Mincha, with the Yom Noram tune? So he says it should be totally in the Shaila. If you're reading, so according to the Ramah Midin Tainis, you should read it the regular way. According to the Mechaber, you should be reading it Midin Kedushas. In fact, I remember when I was in Yeshiva University for Yom Kippur many years ago. So I'm a Levi, and I got Levi Mincha Yom Kippur one year. So obviously, by Levi, I already knew what the Kohen was going to do and what the Balkori do. They read the regular nusach, so I just made the regular brachas with the regular nusach. However, Rav David Lipshitz, the Subakarav, got Shlishi, and he did the niggin of the Yamim No Ra'im. Either he didn't go for the Toshtikal Torah, or he felt that it was wrong. He felt that the Baal Koreh and everyone should have been doing, he hoped maybe like Selevan, or in terms of, or like the Machaber, that you go ahead and it's Midin Kedushas Yom and the Rav. Either way, those are the three nafkaminas. If someone is eating because they have to, could they get an aliyah? Midin Tainis no, Midin Kedushas Yom yes. How many brachas do you make in the Haftorah? It was Midin Tainis Magin David, it's Midin Kedushas Yom, all of them. And what niggin you use. In fact, maybe you should bring a raya from the fact that there's a Haftorah. Normally, Mincha Shabbos is no Haftorah. Shacharis on Shabbos we have Haftorah. Mincha on Shabbos is no Haftorah, but by Tainis we do have. So the fact we have a Haftorah, we read Mafti Yonah, so maybe that should be a raya that it's out the Tainis. So that does some want to bring. Others say, well, actually the old minig was that we always used to read Haftorahs. It wasn't this limited. Even on Mincha and Shabbos, we used to read the Haftorah. Tosas brings down about Memalikin, maybe in Megillah. And therefore, I think he says the distinction was that by Shacharis we read from the Nevi'im, and by Mincha Shabbos we read by the Ksuvim. That's a whole separate discussion in terms of the three different Shmona Esreis we have. The Shabbos of Ma'aseh Bereshis, Friday night, the Shabbos of Matan Torah, and the Echad Shemcha Echad, that's the Shabbos of Mashiach, and they tie in Ksuvim to that. So either way, those are, to summarize, so we discussed the famous Ramban. Why is the Torah focused on only Eretz Yisrael throw you out? Everyone should throw you out. It's not a mitzvah tliyas ba'aretz, it's Isur Shebagufo. But the Ramban was Shitas on that Eretz Yisrael is special. The Avos only kept the Torah even before it was given. They only kept it in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. And the Sifri, that the reason why we keep Tefillin and Mezuzah is so we don't forget that when we go back, we remember how to do it. And therefore that's why the Torah only spells out Eretz Yisrael, which is the main thing. And then we discussed why do we read it on Mincha Yom Kippur. What's the connection with the Issarai? So some say because of Tu B'Av. Some say because of Tu B'Av and Shidduchim, and therefore it's an extra Hashara to be careful with Harayas. Tos's other answer is that because God says you shouldn't reveal your erva, we tell God, don't reveal our erva. Don't reveal our sins. Forgive us and forgive us for our sins. And the Rav suggested that no, that basically, if she touched him, the Rav held that he used to make all the brachas, like the minig and the gra, and working with the Macheshes and his Ramdis, that shows that they were reading Mincha Yom Kippur, Medine Kedushas Hayom, Medine Shabbos, and therefore, it's like on Shacharis, on Mincha we continue where we left off, so too, Mincha Yom Kippur, we continue where we left off, even though we're skipping a little bit in between, but at least we're continuing on the same parsha. So at the end of Acharei Mot, we have a double parsha this week, Acharei Mot-Kedoshim. So at the end of Acharei Mot, the Torah talks about the different prohibitions of arayas, the illicit relations, about adultery, homosexuality, bestiality, and then at the end of the pasuk, at the end of the parsha, it says, and if you do these sins in the land of Israel, they're going to spit you out of the land. That Osaki es Aretz, that Eretz Yisrael is going to throw you out. So the Varshim Abadi, like, what do you mean? These aren't. If you told me, which it might be true anyway, if the Jews don't keep Shemitah, they don't keep true Mamaisa, the agricultural laws, I understand why Israel would throw them out. But these Isser of illicit relations, they apply all over. So America should throw you out, Canada should throw you out. Why Eretz Yisrael? There's a famous Ramban, consistent with his view. Elsewhere, the Ramban writes, because Eretz Yisrael is really the Iker place, the primary spot for Shmiras HaMitzvahs on everything. Not just, of course it's on Truma Maisa and agricultural lands, But even on regular mitzvahs, even though the Yechayev in the mitzvahs wherever you are, but really the ultimate purpose, he gives a mashal where he says, let's say you got put into, let's say you were taken captive, so and you're hoping to the day you came back, so you dropped different things along the way, so therefore you'll know how to return. So too, we do mitzvahs in Golus because we don't want to forget that when we're back in Eretz Yisrael, when we're back with the Beis HaMikdash, we know what to do. So he says, the purpose of the mitzvahs is that we keep them in Eretz Yisrael. This is a Sifri which says that if you don't keep, that even tefillin and mezuzahs, the main purpose is in Israel. Many don't like this, the Ramban. Like Rav Kook loved this Ramban, saying Eretz Yisrael is the main place. Rav Soloveitchik didn't go for it. The Vilna Gaon didn't either. He said it's a mistake. It should be Truma and Meiser, not Tefillin and Mezuzah. It just said, either way, but the bottom line, the Sifri does say it because Rashi quotes it. But either way, that's the Ramban. The Ramban in general, he says, how could Yaakov, the others kept the Torah, how could they marry two sisters? So what his answer was, because only in Eretz Yisrael they kept the mitzvahs. They volunteered them in Chutzor, they didn't, so that's when he married his two. So that's the Ramban throughout. He writes on emphasis on Eretz Yisrael. So that's the Ramban. So the question is, when do we, the parsha we read at the end of Acharei Mot, when do we read this during the year? On what Yantif? We read it on Yom Kippur. This is the waning. The portion of the illicit relations is the end of Acharei Mot. We read on Mincha Yom Kippur. So what's the connection? Why do we read at Mincha Yom Kippur? What does Acharei Mot? What does the Isser Arayis have to do with Yom Kippur? So Tosas and Megillah suggest two answers. Rav Soloveitchik suggested a third. Maybe will suggest a fourth. But Tosas writes, A1 is that why are we reading it? Because what the Gemara tells us in Tainus, the two happiest days of the year is Yom Kippur and Tu B'Av. And one of the things they used to do is Shidduchim. They used to set up, women used to dress up in white. They used to set up for marriage. So since we're talking about marriage, so now is a good time to talk about the illicit relations. Make sure you're married, don't live with a married woman, etc. That's how the first answer of Tosas says. The second answer of Tosas says, because since we're telling God is talking about the Arayas, so we read in the Torah about the Arayas, so we're telling God that just like God's telling us, we shouldn't reveal, we shouldn't be involved in Arayas and like reveal ourselves in these ways. So to God, don't reveal our sins. Forgive us and don't cover them up, so to speak. A third explanation is that maybe you could, more homiletically, Derek Drush, you see, because that's how great, even Mincha Yom Kippur, you think, Yom Kippur, you don't have to worry about things, that the Torah is telling us, how great a human being can be and how much they can fall. Even on Mincha Yom Kippur, you always have to have your guard up for different things. And A4, as Rav Soloveitchik writes, is because he says we have a halacha. What do we do on Shabbos? We read the parsha, and Mincha we continue. So we always continue with the next where we left off. So he says, so to here, what do we read in the morning of Yom Kippur? We read Acharei Mot in the morning. And then, so Mincha, we're continuing Acharei Mot, it's the regular halacha, which isn't that simple because there's a little break. We miss a chapter or two in between. But that's what the Rav Soloveitchik wanted to suggest, that we're reading it as part of the halacha of Mincha Shabbos. In fact, that's a whole discussion in the Mefarshim about what do we read Mincha Yom Kippur? What do we mean Mincha Erev Yom Kippur? Mincha, do we read it because it's like a fast day or because of Shabbos? But that we'll go into another time. But those are the four reasons that we have. Why do we read? So the Ramban said, why Eretz Yisrael? Eretz Yisrael because that's where the Iker place of all mitzvahs are. And then we had the four answers. Why do we read it on Yom Kippur? Either number one because Shidduchim, and then you have to be prepared. You have to separate men and women. You had not just God. We won't reveal our right. Don't reveal our sins. That you always have to be prepared on Yom Kippur. How low a person could fall, how high they could go. and it's a continuation of the Mincha Yom Kippur. And just to give you a quick one on Parshas Kedoshim, since it's a double parsha, so it talks about the mitzvah of Arla. Arla is the halacha that 3 years, the first 3 years, when a tree grows, you can't eat its tree, you can't eat the fruits. And then on the 4th year, you bring it to Yerushalayim. So there's a whole discussion, what's the whole reason behind it. The Rambam writes in general, it was to keep them away from Avodah Zarah, because that's what they used to do. They used to have the people, the Mechavshim, the people of Avodah Zarah used to do things with the plant to try to make it come earlier. So we specifically tell you don't have the plant. You can't have it to year 4 in Yerushalayim. And the Ramban says that that's the Rambam. The Ramban, he says another reason is because you want to give the first stuff to God. So you want to give the first stuff to God. So why not year 1? So he says because the first couple of years the fruits that grow, if they do, aren't any good. So you want to make sure the 4th year is the first good year. So like Bikurim, you want to bring the first fruit, so to speak, to God. That's what the Ramban writes. Others suggest, or Acharei Mot-Kedoshim suggests more, and among the Hasidic Sfarim, that Arla, it's a tikkun for the sin, it's a rectification of the sin of Adam Harishon. What does it do with Adam Harishon? So Adam Harishon, what does the Medrash Talpios tell us? That really, because it says in the pasuk, Mikol Eitz Hagan, you can't eat from, it says, because it says about all the trees you'll be able to eat from, and then he said, he said in this specific tree you can't eat from. So either way, so the Medrash says is, so how could you eat from all if this tree is prohibited? So that's what the Medrash says. That really it was only temporarily prohibited. It was only, in other words, the Medrash says that in the 9th hour Adam was commanded to not eat from the Eitz Hadas, and really by the end of the day, by the 12th hour, would have been Shabbos, and he would have been permitted to eat it. God wanted him to take it on Shabbos. The reason he ate it because he wanted challenge in this world. He wanted to have some opportunity, and God agreed, except he said, wait until Shabbos and I'll give it to you. So basically, Adam, if he would have waited 3 more hours, he would have been fine. So that's what the pshat here, it's the Arla. There's the tikkun that the first 3 years, we're not eating from the Eitz Hadas, we're not eating from the tree in order to show, look, God, if we were there, so to speak, we wouldn't have sinned either. And that's what they point out also. It says, that's why we have halacha about, there's a halacha, the Gemara says, one who eats matzah erev Pesach is like someone who has relations with their engaged wife in the house of their father-in-law. So what's the connection? Well, Jackie Mason has a joke, I can't say it now, but the Mefarshim have a different explanation. The explanation is because by both things, if you wait a little longer, the woman's going to become permitted to you, you'll be married to her. So too, you wait a little bit more, the matzah, I know you're dying to eat that matzah or Pesach, you wait a little longer, you'll eat the matzah. So they point out that the same idea here, it says also Friday night Kiddush, as well, it's like kapara, the Eitz Hadas, because we're showing we're waiting. That's the whole concept of Arla. Arla is showing that and that's true in life in general. Especially in the society we live today, everything's rushed, computer age. Everything's got to be in its proper time. You don't have to do it this way tomorrow. It has to be step by step. And in fact, just to conclude, that's also to tie it into the beginning of the first parasha. It says Acharei Mot-Kedoshim b'nei Aaron. After Aaron's 2 sons died, so just tell me the names. To say Acharei Mot Nadav Avio, why are you calling them Shnei B'nei Aaron? So that's what the Mefarshim point out, because that was the mistake, according to some, of the sin of Nadav Avio. That they were going to be great people, and that's what Moshe and Aaron knew, but they couldn't wait. They one of the elders are going to die, so we could take over. So they started making the move before it was their time. That's what it's called. People go through different stages in life. You go through a younger element, you could be a teacher, you could be a student, a teacher, you go to grad school, whatever, you have the whole stages in life. That's what the Torah is telling. Acharei Mot-Kedoshim b'nei Aaron. That was the mistake. They were still only Bnei Aaron, but they would view themselves as not even ready to take over, and that was the same idea of the Arla. The Arla is all about patience. Patience, haste makes waste. We say in Hallel, Rabbi Yosef always says, when you stay, even though in Pesach wasn't haste because we had to get out of Mitzrayim, but in life, things that come, usually you have to work on it. The more effort you put into something, the more you get out of it. That's the lesson of Acharei Mot-Kedoshim, and that's the lesson of Arla. You have to wait a little bit. When you wait a little bit, then the fourth year you'll get the good fruits, and after that you'll be able to enjoy the rest of the tree. And that's what one of the messages of the mitzvah of Arla.